Hello and welcome to the Once and Future podcast. That's why we love editing. Hello and welcome to the Once and Future Parent podcast. Try saying that 5 times fast after you've been up all night with a baby. We are here. We're excited. We're going to be talking about the Halloween season and the homecoming season that has just passed us by. Two things that often get a lot of attention in parental discussion groups. But first, I need to share some news with you folks because
Yes.
we love our babies. And sometimes at night, when they just, you get them to fall asleep in your arms and then you wait a good long time and they are dead to the world and you put them down in the crib thinking you can finally start doing the things you've wanted to do. And immediately they wake up like, that's frustrating. That's obnoxious. But you know what makes it all better? When they smile at you. My baby smiled for the first
Hey.
time today, and we are
Oh.
calling that a big old win.
That's a
Ah.
huge win. Oh,
Right?
God, yeah. Yeah, that's the stuff. What is
Yeah.
it? So talk more about that. What does it feel like the moment it happens? And was it to you? Was it to Mary?
We will both claim that. I'm pretty sure he smiled at Mary first, probably the day before, and I really only got to see it today. But either way, it's great,
Little
Yeah.
bastard.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Playing
because I
favorites
don't
already?
produce milk from my own body, ugh, it's so resentful. But no, I think one of the things with babies is like it's a lot of work, and it just feels like a very one-sided thing. Like I am taking care of you, and you are barely aware that I'm existing, except that I'm going to do the things that make you stop crying, and it's fine. We all know what we signed up for. And certainly there will never be a time in my child's life where I feel like I am showing them love and they are showing me nothing but resentment and an expectation I fulfill their needs. That certainly won't ever
Certainly
describe a
not.
moment of time. But so having that time now be over with and moving on to something a little bit new where there can be at least a little bit of acknowledgement that I exist is it's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
It's so strange. You should say my entire role is to do the things that make you stop crying. That is ripped right from my wedding vows. I said that to Jer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Touching to the last.
I like it.
I think I said this to you last week, Matthew. It's all this divine design. And I'm not religious, but I believe that whoever creates life also says right about the time the parents are ready to throw the baby out the window, let's have the baby smile.
Mhm.
And it just makes it all. Penn just bought himself way more months of your patience and understanding and compassion with that little smile. And then right about the time you're ready to throw the baby out the window, Penn's going to
There'll
say,
be something else.
Dada, or he's going to clap or sit up or do something else that is the reward.
I think you're right. I think we can definitely see it as this is how it's supposed to be. We can also see it as, historically all the babies that didn't do that got thrown out the window and thus genetically have been selected. It's a darker way of looking at it. And no, I was not anywhere close to throwing my baby out a window. Neither was Mandy, but
No.
you know what we all mean. But I will tell you a cool biological fact that I learned that you two might both know already. Do you know why it is that shh is kind of like the universally accepted sound for helping someone to quiet down or to calm down?
Mandy, are we buzzing
Okay.
in?
No, you
Wow.
I like buzzing in.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like the womb.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always had thought that it was just cultural, and just because that's what we say. And I was reading something about how to help your baby sleep, and it suggested doing that. And I was sort of like, well, but if the baby doesn't know yet that shh me is like a calming sound, why would they think that? But it turns out that what the sound you're making is actually mimicking the sound of blood going by them while they're in the womb. So,
Hmm.
Still works on me.
yeah,
I mean, like Pavlov.
I will definitely try that. You're going to hear shh when...
Yeah. Do you listen to white noise when you sleep?
I sometimes do, but then I'll also listen to my own podcasts, and they'll put me right to sleep. So
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm going to move right on past that attempt at self-depreciation and talk about our topic for the day, which is primarily going to be Halloween, but I snuck in a little bit about homecoming because basically it's about playing dress up with our kids and then accepting when our kids play dress up with themselves. Because, Halloween is the first time we can start doing that. I think Mary and I have kind of decided we were Grinches about Halloween a while ago. We have these animal onesies that we got a couple years ago, and all we've ever done is just stayed home and passed out candy to kids and dressed up as those, and that's 5 seconds of effort. But I think we've now bought 4 outfits for our baby for Halloween. A little bear costume, a little Appa from. We got him a little Appa costume from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, we are just going nuts with it. And I'm sure that there's just a lot of joy you get out of, putting your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old, your 4-year-old. And of course, that eventually gets into when they start to pick their own outfit and how you feel about that and the good and the bad. And that becomes a topic that a lot of people have a lot of opinions on, especially because sometimes Halloween costumes are not the most wholesome, family friendly. They might have things written on them that not everyone loves, or they might be letting a child they might be letting a teenager express themselves in ways that we're not always comfortable with, or certainly that the other kids' parents aren't going to be comfortable with. There's just a lot there to say. So I'm going to kind of throw it open to you all. What has Halloween been like for you all as parents?
Well, I was raised in the Grinch household as an only child. So I was raised like when I was really young, yeah, we went trick or treating, but once my parents discovered how much I love movies, which was very young, we made Halloween movie night, and we would go out to the movie theater, and the house was dark. And when we came back, and I'm not kidding, this makes me sound horrible, certainly makes my parents sound horrible, we would keep the lights off and hide in one of the back rooms, because we'll never have bought candy, and we just enjoyed, I don't know, like kids would knock on the door and it was horrible because we would hide. Like literally, there were years I remember hiding on our hands and knees behind a couch so they couldn't see shadows, silhouettes walking through the windows. It was not great. I grew up and I tried not to give that to my kids. But I was never a great trick-or-treat dad. I was good. I did it. Absolutely. I did what I was supposed to do. And we collected lots of candy and did the real stereotypical stuff. My kids ended up being very crafty, and years would make their own costumes. Here's a felt crayon. Here's, the giant spider with, coat hanger arms. And I mean, they would do all sorts of things like that. And eventually once they got old enough to make that choice and not, decide, maybe I would rather stay home with dad and just make it horror movie night, I was home. So, we have our own traditions that don't involve, like, we'll hand out candy, but they don't involve, parties, costumes. It's really just, we watch the scariest of the scary movies on Halloween night, and that's just it. It's horrible, right?
I have to say, when you started that story of like, oh, we turn all the lights off and you're going to think that my parents were terrible, what I expected was that, they were showing horror movies to young kids. Like that's
right.
the thing.
No.
I was not expecting we're not just going to politely decline to hand out candy. We're going to make this whole game of, they probably saw us watching the movie, but we turned off the movie and now we're like...
And let me tell you, those are formative memories of joy with my parents. As an only child, like we laughed hysterically spying on the neighborhood from our house, knowing nobody's thinking of us, nobody's thinking about us, but we were playing hide and seek with another party that did not know that they were playing hide and seek. And it was super funny as a kid. It sounds ridiculous as I say it all out loud. Ridiculous. But I remember it fondly.
I definitely have questions, but Mandy, why don't you go first? I definitely have questions, but Mandy, why don't you go next?
Well, growing up, my parents' philosophy was like, we don't have the money to spend on fancy costumes. So all my friends would buy their costume at the store, and I had to make a costume. And I am not crafty. So when I was about 6, I convinced them to get me some blue paint, and I painted my face blue, and I wore my blue leotard and blue tights that I had from some dance recital. And I had a little white skirt, and I think I made a little white hat, and I put my blonde hair in braids, and I went up to my first door and I bing bong trick or treat, and they said, "Oh, what are you? A blue ballerina?"
Oh no.
I cried, "I'm Smurfette!" And then I ran home, and that was it. So I definitely didn't I was not a Halloween lover because it felt like
Mhm.
yet another thing that my friends got to experience in a better way than me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I do distinctly remember the dads waiting at the end of the driveway when we were little, and then the dads waiting at the end of the block when we were a little older. And, I remember that feeling of freedom.
Mhm.
And I going through it with Casey when he was a baby. I remember showing up with him on my hip in whatever costume it was. I think a bear. And then the next summer holding his hand and walking him up the walk. And then the
Yep.
next time letting him go a few steps without me and eventually waiting. It's such a way to mark time. And uh and Casey's not all that into it. I always bought him his costumes because I
Mhm.
was like, your mom's not crafty and she's not cheap like my mom. So I was like, oh, we're going to the store, Party City. You can pick whichever one you want. And he
Right.
always picked the most popular Morphin Power Ranger or
Mhm.
Ninja, whatever was trending
Teenage
that
Mutant Ninja
year.
Turtles. Yep.
That's what Casey wanted to be. And it was like, you go, you do
Yeah.
you, kid.
Makes sense. Well,
They,
there's a
I,
bunch of directions I want to take this, but I first just want to name this. To me is another one of those examples where parenting in the city and parenting in suburbia or other places like that is obviously so different because one of the strongest Halloween traditions that I remember from when I was a kid is I always lived in apartment buildings. So there's generally at least like 30 to 50 other families, depending on how, or many more, sharing the building we were in.
Mhm.
So sometime in the week before Halloween, someone would put a clipboard up in the elevator or later, like when my father was doing well financially, at the doorman. But for most of my childhood, we were not doing as well. So it was like a one elevator building. You'd put a clipboard up with a piece of paper, and people would write down their apartments if they were people you would be willing to have trick or treaters come to. So your whole
wow.
story, Pete, is
Smart.
one that I realized was so outside my experience because you would know who are the people who are not
Yeah.
going to be giving trick or treat candy and who are the people who are.
Yeah. Right. Right. And I think in our neighborhood there were enough houses that were actually in on Halloween but were dark for a reason, right? To scare
Mm-hmm.
people, that our dark house with nothing going on was just an additional sort of level up of the trick. Like
Yeah.
we just weren't present. But we also I think it's only just occurs to me that this was going on, and I don't know if this factored into my parents' decisions to um, you know, not lean in on Halloween. But as a kid myself, I grew up in the razor blade in the apple panic,
Mhm.
Ah. Yep.
right? Which was, I think mostly a myth, largely debunked, but radicalized by suburban parents. And, I think there was a distinct choice to avoid any risk that
Oh, yeah.
came, year to year. It would swing in either direction, but I think there was a real effort to avoid risk and give kids something else to do that was fun,
Yeah.
that was predictable and controllable.
I mean, I have, and that's not a fear that's gone away, or if maybe it went away, it has come back because every year, like as I said, me and Mary don't want to go out and do Halloween, but we like being the people who we get to ooh and ah over all the kids' costumes and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I always want to like make cookies or make like fun bars or stuff like that. And I always get yelled at, and people I talk to are like, no, you can't do that. No one will ever
Yeah.
accept
Right.
a homemade thing
Got to be packaged.
because
Yeah.
you
Got
have
to
to
be
put drugs in it.
packaged. Yep.
Right.
And granted, I haven't been part of that economy for a while, but if I remember, the street price of drugs is not really enough that you can pass it out for free to 10-year-olds. I don't know where this idea came from.
It's an investment.
Perhaps.
You're creating future business.
Costco passing
Matthew.
out the freebies. Okay.
We just
Yeah,
give out
exactly.
individually wrapped gummies now.
So,
It's
so
a great
drug dealers
way to
can write
get
it off on their
kids. Yeah.
taxes. is
Yeah,
what
for
we're saying
sure.
here. Okay. Okay. Well, okay. So let's with that kind of city urban suburban breakdown in mind, let's kind of start. I want to kind of go through the age because I think the Halloween questions change. So first of all, just as babies, it sounds like you had a bear costume. Pete, did you have like adorable little baby costumes for your?
Yes, they were different flavors of bagged costumes, and I can level up. Like at one point, when you're into costuming babies, you may get into costuming pets too, and so we may have had some dress wear for our animals.
Okay. Who protested more about putting them into a costume, the babies or the pets?
The actual act of putting in the costume, probably the pets, but staying in the costume, the baby. The pets were
Okay.
just sullen.
That's fair.
Once
That's
they're
fair.
in, they're just sullen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And so then walk me through as you like I love what you said, Mandy, about that way of marking time of first you're carrying the little bear and then you're kind of holding him by the hand as he's toddling up the steps and stuff like that. Do you have a memory of when they started to have some thoughts or input about the costume that they were wearing?
Oh, very young for for Casey.
Yeah.
When he was in preschool, he knew it was a thing. He was
Right.
only 3, and he got to pick Buzz Lightyear.
Okay.
We picked from the wall at Party City, and he picked Buzz Lightyear, and he showed up, and his little best friend was also Buzz Lightyear, and it was the cutest thing.
Yeah.
So he always picked, and then he really stopped caring quite young at 11 or 12 when all his friends were still into it.
Yeah.
He would say, "I don't care. Just put a sheet over my head and poke
Yeah.
holes for the eyes." Like he lost his spark for it.
Yeah.
But it was real cute when he was little.
That's adorable. That's awesome.
It is. I like it that it is first. It's an opportunity for the kids to express agency, right? Giving them authority to choose their own thing and craft it the way they want to craft it. I mean, I'm just scrolling through my photos and of my kids at Halloween and what they and their friends would do. I mean, I there's one year I'm looking at my daughter and their little friend, and they dressed up in what you could only describe as maybe generously
S&M.
I'm going to say terrorist adjacent garb, and
Wow.
they're holding signs that says, "No, we are sock puppets." They're dressed in different colored felt, and they needed a sign, but that's great because that's how they learn, right?
Yeah.
And there was a period, when I was still shooting photographs professionally, where every year at Halloween was a great year to do themed horror photo shoot with the kids. And so I would dress them up and rub dirt all over them and make them zombies and have them scratching out through the door hinges and things. And
Right.
they would love that. But mostly it's just watching them have agency. The other piece that I think is so great about this is that these memories become kind of a timeline map through pop culture history. Like
Sure.
I go back, you can see what is popular by what your kids are watching or dressing as. And if there isn't an infant K-pop demon hunter in your future, Matthew, I don't know, you're going to be doing it wrong, because you're going to want those pictures from year one.
Oh, I am already trying to see if I can get my hand on an idol costume
Yeah.
for myself. So yeah, no, K-pop
Yep.
Demon Hunter is going to be a big part of it.
I didn't think of it, but that will be the costume theme this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I was living in Brooklyn, we don't get as many people now, but when I used to live in New York City, oddly so, like I said, in apartment building living, you got people trick-or-treating in the apartments. In New York City, when I lived in Brooklyn, which is more kind of like smaller apartment buildings, row houses and stuff like that, you would get some people would go door to door to houses, but also they often went door to door to businesses in like the streets where it was all like
Sure.
bodegas and mom and pop places, not big chains. And I did always love, because I was very into the MCU at that point, still am, but this was when at the height of it, and we always loved going and like watching the kids because they move around in little packs. And seeing like, okay, what was going to be the big thing this year? Okay, this year there's a lot of Iron Men, and next year it's going to be a lot of things. And I always remember, to me, one of the most like hopeful moments of like maybe things are going to be okay. This was a number of years ago. Was when the year that Black Panther came out. I remember watching a lot of white kids dressed up as T'Challa, as
Yeah.
Black Panther, and that was just kind of such an awesome moment to me of like
Yeah.
that they're seeing this as a hero.
Yeah, God, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, some of the other trappings of the activity that I think I would never want to kind of let go, which eventually you have to let go, is pumpkin carving, right? That's one that became a real staple at our house, and pumpkin carving has gotten crazy over the last 5-10 years with templates and laser cutters, and I'm not down with that. For me, I still stab the thing, make it look like eyes. But that was a thing that again, looking back through those photos, through the history of our family's experience with Halloween, is something I really cherish. And you can see there's a Pac-Man theme that went through. Everybody made Pac-Man and put little votive candles on a bench, and it looked like it was great. There is a whole Minecraft thing where all the things were like shaved off to look like blocks, all the pumpkins. You really, I mean, I think as an artifact of family history, those things they matter. They're important, as much of a Grinch as I can be.
I mean, if
I
nothing
find
else,
that surprising, knowing you, Pete, that you were a Grinch.
Yeah, it's weird, right? I
Yeah.
don't care for it. I
Okay.
don't care for it. Wait till the 4th of July. You want to hear a Grinch. You just wait.
I'm good.
I got things.
I'm okay. I
Yep.
don't need to.
I've been asleep on New Year's Eve at 11 p.m. every night for the last 10 years.
There's another one.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
You make it till 11?
Well, normally I make it till 2. I am
Oh.
a night owl. This is me consciously making a decision to go to sleep before midnight. Pretty much the only night of the year that I do so.
Oh, and I try to stay awake, and it's 9:30, and I'm like, well, it's on the East Coast. We did it, so I'm done.
Yeah, that's fair.
You guys, I have a correction. I just said my kids made a conscious choice at one point to stay home and watch movies with me. And going through these photos as I am right now, I realize that in 2018, I remember my son on Halloween day broke his wrist in gym class and had it wrapped up in a cast and had to stay home because he was on drugs and not feeling very good. And that was when that tradition started. I'd completely forgotten that. But ever since then,
I love that.
it's been movie night. Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, Pete, I think the thing that I'm walking away from this episode is how impressed I am by your photo saving and sorting abilities.
Yes.
Because if you asked me to go back and find pictures of my last 10 Halloweens, I'd be like,
Yeah.
So good luck with that.
Yeah.
Let's talk. I want to spend some time talking about the spookiness and the horror and the how that's both, all the different approaches to that. And I will promise how I'm going to show you how Homecoming ties in, but that's not till we get to the kids as teenagers. But first, let's talk about candy. For me as a kid, I've always loved to eat all the candy I can, and if I get sick the next day, well, didn't really happen. My stomach was made of rubber. And then as a neighbor, I'm happy to pat. We were full candy bar people. We did the good candy.
Ooh.
Although I would sometimes get those the big bags of different kind of candy bars, and find the ones that I really liked and pull those out and give the kids the rest. But as parents, I recognize that perhaps from a health and a dental and a sugar rush perspective, having your kids get enough candy to gorge themselves for the next 5 nights straight may not be the best thing in the world. I want you to tell me that you just had no barriers and let your kids do whatever they wanted and everything was okay. But tell me, what was your perspective when little kids came home with their body weight in processed sugar?
Well, I don't know if we've discussed how much my parents hated me, but they also allowed no junk food in the house when I was growing up.
Oh my God,
None.
Andy.
Granola once a week was our sugar cereal that we were allowed to have.
Wow.
Yeah. So Halloween would come, and we were allowed to eat a couple pieces on Halloween night, and then they would take our bags and hide them. And then when they deemed appropriate, they would say, okay, you can have a piece of candy. I'll get your candy bag. By the way, they were in the laundry room, and my sister and I went to town when we found that. So with Casey, I wanted to be more balanced, and I didn't want to let him gorge, but I wanted him to make good choices. So he got home. We said, you can have 2 or 3 pieces, and then you put the rest away. And then the next day you can have 2 or 3 pieces and put the rest away. And what we found is he forgot it was there. He would, oh, I still have Halloween candy. But it wasn't, he wasn't obsessed over it. So I felt proud that we had made it accessible and his choice.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was real little, 2, 3, 4, 5, he didn't keep track of that candy. So I would steal. I would steal it. Just eat all the Snickers and the Reese's and all the stuff I like. And then one year, maybe
For the sake of the family.
for my
Yeah.
child.
Yeah,
Right.
you're doing the work.
And then there was one year he said, "Didn't I have 3 Snickers left?" And I was like,
I don't know. Let me check
we're
the
there.
spreadsheet.
"We're there." Yes. So I stopped eating his candy when he was old enough to keep track.
Yeah.
My
My-
parents were mostly of the let me gorge myself, but I do recall that there was someone, and again, because like when I was a kid, they did either 'cause our parents didn't care, it was the city or whatever, but there were some people who gave away homemade stuff, especially peanut brittle. And my mother would always insist that my little teeth were going to break if we tried to eat peanut brittle. So she had to take that from us, for our own good.
Yeah.
And then
Smart.
later I
Doing the
learned
work.
how much she loved
Yep.
peanut brittle. But for the most part, it was fine.
Yeah.
But looking back on it later, when I realized how much she loved peanut brittle, it was a
Yeah.
mom.
Mhm.
Pete, what about you? What did you
We-
do to protect those little systems from sugar rush?
Here's a disgusting story.
Yes.
My dad was a longtime smoker, and when he wanted to quit, he went to a place called the Pikes Peak Quit Center, and they put him in a phone booth and made him smoke until he threw up. Just piles of spent butts on this counter in front of him, and he did that twice and never smoked again. And so that was sort of our philosophy around candy on Halloween night. Whatever you can do, whatever you do, whatever damage you want to do until they were sick, and then they wouldn't even care about it going forward. Now, that worked better on one of my children than the other. One of them is
Sure.
absolutely, pristine when it comes to their candy intake. The other can sense sweet through walls, and so I don't know that our experience marks actual truth in action, but that's what we did largely. And in those real formative years when they were bringing back loads of candy, at the end of the night the candy would go away. A lot of times Kira would take it to school and donate it in the teacher's lounge. Like
That's what she was
disappear.
telling you. For the record, she was off in a parking lot, with her seat way back in the car, just
just
slamming that
gouging.
stuff.
She comes
Yeah.
home with just a stain of chocolate around her
Yes.
mouth. Yeah, delightful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that one night actually was not that bad because they might be a little sick to their stomach, but mostly the sugar causes a big up and a big crash, and then they're sound asleep and we're done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. My memory is that my parents would let me gorge as much as I wanted to, but I didn't. Like, I don't remember ever getting sick, but I also don't remember, having real problems with it. But then and my first thought was, well, I've always had much more of a savory tooth. Like, my problem is potato chips, not candy bars. But maybe it was because I gorged myself on it at that age and kind of got over a sweet tooth. Who knows?
Yeah.
Let's talk though about
wish.
spookiness and the spoopiness of it, because on the one hand, Halloween is all about the horror, the scariness, but also we've kind of like made horror cute and
Right.
adorable. And like you said, it's like fun to have your little kids dress up as zombies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And but we have, I think, also talked somewhat about, like you show little kids scary stuff, like they might have nightmares for a while. It might not be the best thing in the world. How did you guys? I'd love to hear from parents, especially now that I am one and I have to think about this in a couple of years, sort of how you found that line of like trying to keep the actual scary stuff away from kids or just throwing them in the deep end, but either way at the same time, like making things like being zombies and skeletons and vampires fun.
Well, I have been on the record as saying Casey was always very frightened of a lot in movies, and when I took him to a haunted house at the YMCA, he was maybe 3, and it was tame, guys. It was cute.
Yeah.
But somebody popped out from behind a curtain on the floor, and Casey screamed, "No, that is not okay." And made this poor volunteer feel terrible.
Oh God.
And that was it for him. He was like, "I don't want to do scary things. I don't like it." So that has lasted. He was at a birthday party recently and they were like, "Hey, let's put on whatever, the Saw movies. They're 15. They're
Yeah.
free to watch stuff like that." And Casey said, "No problem. I'm going to go in the other room and try and go to sleep." He cannot watch scary stuff. So when you're going around your neighborhood, it's hard. I want to scream, "No, that is not okay," at like the 12 and 13-year-olds who are the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And Pennywise was huge when
Oh,
Casey
sure.
was about 6 or 7 or 8, all those years. And the older kids delighted in trying to scare the little kids. And
Yeah.
it wasn't fun. But I think it's part of your chemical makeup. Some of Casey's friends would be like, "Oh, go away. That's annoying." And Casey was traumatized by a 12-year-old chasing him around as Pennywise. He didn't know who
Yeah.
Pennywise was, but he was just so I don't have a real good answer. Casey is just his own person and still does not like scary stuff. And
Yeah, and that's
Other
that's
kids like
completely
it.
legit. That's completely
Yeah.
legit.
I think that's exactly it. I think we try to make sort of we writ large, we try to make these sort of rules and guidelines about when to show kids certain things. But really what we need to show them is, again, they get to have agency. I think Casey being able to say out loud, "Okay, enjoy your movie. I'm going to go in the other room and go to sleep," is incredible. I didn't have that when I was Casey's age, and I would suffer through, mostly just listening to horrible things on television at sleepovers because they would put it on anyway. I think kids are so unique, and what they can handle and what they can't is is unique to them and their experience. I think the bigger question is, to what degree do you believe that showing them these things will make them these things? And I
Right.
happen to not be one of those people, and so I've for one of my kiddos, we watch horrible, scary things all the time. We didn't used to. They came to me and said, "I think I'm ready. Let's start looking at stuff." My other has now an adult and never got into it, never interested in it, unless it was dragons. If it's high fantasy, dragons eating people is fine.
Yeah.
But it's just very unique to each kid, and I think that's okay.
And I think that's such a good insight, because even just the idea of what people find scary. Because like I said, like
Yeah.
the fact that like there's cute little like, oh, isn't it so cute to have a 5-year-old vampire right now, or zombie, and there's things like Hotel Transylvania and like other shows
which I
that-
love, by the way.
yeah, which have made all of this
So
super cute and adorable. And then there's other stuff that will scare you that you have no idea about. I was definitely a teenage boy who watched I watched all the Friday the 13th movies, because there was a real sort of, are you a Freddy guy or a Jason guy? And I was a Jason guy. And now I don't like jump scares, and I get grossed out by things, but I'm not really bothered by them in a fear way. But I have still never finished the movie The Neverending Story. And I don't think I would have a
Outstanding.
panic attack about it the way I did in my 20s when I
Yeah.
tried to watch it. But I watched it when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and something about the great nothing utterly terrified me.
Yeah.
As well as,
Sure.
like, I know Falkor is supposed to be this big thing, this friendly thing, but he's a huge fuzzy dragon thing.
Yeah.
And I was terrified of him as a kid. And, a friend had a stuffed Falkor when I was like 14, and it bothered me for reasons it really shouldn't have. And yeah, so I think that is also such an important insight, is like, we have no idea what we're going to be scared about,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We are
My first
sorry.
one was my dad. One of his favorite movies was Salem's Lot, and I was about 7 years old. And he's like, "Just watch a little bit of it." And he puts on the videotape, and then the phone rings, and he leaves. Now he was supposed to be in the room with me. He was not in the room with me. I was in the room alone. And he closed the door, and I was sitting on my knees on the carpet in front of the TV. And then that one part where the other friend is outside the window and says, "Let me in, Billy, let me in," scratching at the window because he's flying, because the child is a vampire. That scarred me for 20 years. Like
I apologize for the rudeness of Pete not giving spoiler warnings, but here we are.
I refuse to give spoiler warnings to that movie. It does not deserve it. It's
It's also
horrible.
50 years old, so it's totally
Wow.
Right. Yeah, that was my first bit of trauma, and I really didn't watch horror movies until I was an adult and
Yeah.
trained myself to it.
We are about to test Casey's metal. Is that the expression? Because he's agreed to go on a haunted hayride with us. We're doing it with two other families. That same family invited him to go to Universal Horror Fest
Oh,
or whatever
geez.
it is. And he said, thank you, but no. And it was
Yeah.
for her birthday. And she was saying, I'm only inviting 4 friends. I want you to come. And he said, I'm honored. No.
Yeah.
So he really knows his limits.
Yep.
And I said, this is supposed to be jump scare fun, not terrifying you to your core. And he said, okay, I'll try a haunted hayride.
Right.
So, this
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
mean a lifetime of therapy. But he made the choice. I said, I think it would be fun. And he said, okay, I'll try. I didn't say, come on. Other families are going, we should do it. But that's
Yeah.
what I felt.
I mean, one of the things I'm learning, and you may both roll your eyes because, of course, you've known this for decades, but is that so much with parenting, it really feels like you're trying to find this knife's edge of a middle ground, where,
Mhm.
like you said, you don't want to push him too much and make him face things he's not ready for. But, of course, also you don't want to, keep them so deeply in the nest that they never get to, try things and experiment and learn for themselves. And yeah, it seems like letting the kid be the one who really says, like, hey, I think I'm ready for this. I think I'm not, is an important thing.
You know what's interesting, and I'm a little surprised that between the three of us, it's taken 36 minutes to say it. The thing that I think I am more concerned about is the hypersexualization of Halloween.
And here's where the homecoming part comes in.
Okay,
And that's my favorite part.
well, and I also want to say, like, we're a pro-sex family. I mean, that sounds weird. But we're not particularly zealous in our, prudence. I don't know what
You're
that-
not
I don't know what
Puritans.
that's- We're definitely not Puritans, but there
Just
is
a quick aside, sex is the most natural thing in the world. And
Yes.
the idea that we are generally in favor of it has to be so carefully stated
yes.
is, I think, the problem itself. But
That
go
is the
on.
problem. 100%. That is the problem. The thing that I found I've been finding interesting, and the fact that, of course, our belief systems and our sort of awarenesses change as we change ourselves. And before I was a father to my daughter, I did not think about these things at all. And
Yeah.
then suddenly it became a thing that I was very aware of quite suddenly. And it comes in these pop culture waves. My goodness, the Harley Quinn costumes, y'all,
yeah.
and it's hard to believe that I'm looking at these young children in these hypersexualized costumes with the parents standing 30 feet away at the edge of the driveway and having to remind them, now say trick or treat, now say thank you. Like, those things are a little bit stunning to me. And I am very, very lucky that I have 2 adult kids who never went through the phase of needing to peacock like that. Because I didn't have to come to an answer of that. I just get to be a little bit shocked by it when it shows up at my door. But it's real.
I think that is such a good way of approaching it. And granted, I'm not the one who has gone through it yet, but I've certainly spent an awful lot of my time and career looking at, like, sex ed programs and what is healthy and not healthy about exposing kids to sexuality and stuff. And, like, I feel like it is so hard to talk about this without it getting to a very puritanical, like, it is bad place,
Right.
And I love that word you talked about, peacocking. And this is where the homecoming part comes in, because this is probably going to come out somewhat later, but I'm recording this in mid-September. We're just coming off the end of homecoming season. And I've just out of curiosity, I've kind of like signed into a lot of different parts of parenting social media, especially TikTok. And apparently the fashion for homecoming dresses this year is particularly short and particularly wispy and particularly exposing. And a lot of parents have an awful lot of feelings on it. And I think it's one of those things where it becomes very easy to become very polarized, and it's either like, oh my God, we're exposing kids to sexuality. Next thing you know, they're going to be gay or some terrible thing like that. Or no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. What's wrong with you? Kids should get to do everything and anything that they want. And I'm leaning a lot more to that other side. But there is, again, some middle ground to be found. And if nothing else, I feel like there needs to be a place for us to talk as parents about, like, yeah, I'm not saying that I think it is bad they do it. It's shocking to me, and I don't know how I feel about it. And I'm not sure it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I just don't know. And this is a new thing I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I think I've said this on the podcast before, and if I haven't, I should have.
Mm-hmm.
Parents are too concerned with being the kid's friend. So I think that a lot of the thing I would say if I had a daughter and she came and said, I'm going to wear this teeny tiny dress, I would say, I don't want you to. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about sexuality and the nature of things and, in your age and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Even though she might go, oh, mom, I don't want to hear, I know. But it's like parents are too afraid, or frankly, I'm trying not to say this, but I would say, no, you're not. Take it back. You're not wearing that, depending on her age.
Right.
So but that would make me unpopular. That would make her resent me and hate me. And I'm not, I always say, like, I'm a cool mom, like from Mean Girls, but I'm not. I'm your mom. And I'm here to try to protect you and educate you and enlighten you and make you and encourage good decisions. And dressing like a slutty Harley Quinn when you're 8 is not a good decision. But let's talk about it. I'm not going to just say, no, that's inappropriate. I'm burning it with your books, with all your books.
With all the books.
Right. And I hear that, and I think, as I understand it, I feel like there's two different related parts of this debate, and one of which is definitely the one that you're mentioning, that I think is one that I think, there's definitely a lot of worthwhile attention being paid to of just the more general, like, are we okay setting boundaries? Are we okay not being our kid's best friend? Are we okay, having some thoughts about what is and isn't appropriate? And then also the question of, like, is that Harley Quinn costume appropriate? For an 8-year-old, I think absolutely not. For a 16-year-old, I think there is some debate, back and forth. And I don't know where I stand on that yet, and I understand where people are. But I think that's where, and I think also, like, the gender side of it, where it all comes in. But yeah, I think it is definitely not easy. And I think that what you're saying more than anything that I really hear is the willingness to sometimes say to our kids things that the kids are not going to want to hear, or that aren't going to make us the cool mom, the popular dad, is actually really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, let's be clear. We've been saying things that make us unpopular since they could understand what we were saying, right? Like, no, you can't eat any more of that. No, that's not a thing we're going to do. No, stop trying to lick the third rail. Like, we're just not going to do those things. So why should this be any different? Well, because social pressure at school is a signal that they're getting that, that comes into play in middle school, high school, that is heavy. Heavy is that weight. And so, you have to figure out where those lines are. But again, just like when you introduce them to things that might be scary, introducing them to things that might be hypersexualized or even naturally sexualized is dependent on the kid. I think for us, when it came time to have those talks, and I think this merits a separate episode, but so much of our messaging was sex is so cool, and it's so much better when it comes with consent and such a feeling of mutual admiration, and not booze and getting stoned and having things happen unintentionally or accidentally. Like, it is the coolest thing you can do with your body if you do it right and thoughtfully. And so we encourage you to have those thoughts. It's okay. And let's just talk about it, because it's important to be able to talk about it. And I'm sure our kids think that, like, we talk about it all the time. And our kids grew up thinking we are like the horniest couple ever. But my daughter came in and said, I've been spending a lot of time at my partner's house, and I just want you to know how awesome it is to know that I have parents who genuinely love each other and are not afraid to be deeply affectionate with each other and talk about
Yeah.
it, because that has changed my interpretation of what it means to be in a relationship.
Mm.
Those kinds of things start at places like homecoming and Halloween. And those conversations, they take root very early, much earlier than I think we're, as parents, willing to have them, you know.
Yeah, I've never seen Halloween as sexy, even in my 20s when living in New York, you would go out to a bar and every girl
Yeah.
was Britney Spears and Catholic schoolgirl and all of those tropes. Um, I've always seen it as a chance to get a laugh. So
Mhm.
all my costumes
Mhm.
have always just been silly. I've never
Yeah.
I'm sexy 364 other days a year. I
Sure,
get one
you
night
need
off,
it.
you guys.
Yeah,
I
right.
get one night.
Well, and
Um, but
here's my concern. If you go into the Spirit Halloweens or even just the Halloween section of Target, you're gonna there's companies that just make the sexy nurse, the
Right.
sexy doctor, the sexy cop. Where is the sexy podcaster outfit? Because I haven't seen
Oh,
that yet.
good
Oh.
point.
You know?
Yeah.
Like-
No, you'd have to make that one yourself. And
Yeah. Well, I
You
think
don't
we're all
wanna see the
rocking it today,
microphone.
but no, I think it is important, and part of what got me thinking about this was there's that great quote from Mean Girls that I think gets repeated all the time at this time of year of, Halloween is the one night a year when a girl can dress up like a slut and it's totally okay. And, I've heard lots of debate about that, both the like, oh my God, this is terrible, but also as I think, Pete, this is kind of what you were saying, that it is kind of a night where a little bit of experimentation is okay and,
Yeah.
pushing those bounds a little bit. And as you said, I think we're going to have a number of conversations probably about how we adjust to our kids exploring that part of themselves. And there's a great program called Our Whole Lives that I'm definitely going to want to talk about to you guys at some point. But yeah, I think it's really interesting that Halloween has, I guess because it's dressing up and stuff like that, has become this time where that's now accepted. And one thing I've seen also is that it's that idea for appreciation, for experimentation, is often very sexy or sexual, but often can be kind of in a related way. Like I've heard a lot of trans people who will talk
Yes.
about going in drag as a Halloween costume was kind of either their first way of trying something for themselves, or maybe their first way of like introducing this idea to their parents or to their families,
Or that it's
but
the
also just-
one night of the year you can get away with feeling completely comfortable in your own skin when you feel like you have to hide all those other days,
Yeah.
right? Like from when I was a
Yeah.
kid, right?
Yeah. And so how do we both encourage that, but
Yeah.
also like, hey,
Embrace
maybe-
and extend.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely rough. It's definitely
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah, for sure. What do we got? Did we solve it?
I'm out.
Is
Yeah.
that it? Did we solve it? Everything?
I mean,
Are we done?
the rest for me is just anecdotes, but it's, I just think a lot of parental issues come up at Halloween, different than Christmas. Halloween is a time they want to be independent, and uh, we just don't go through this a lot with Casey, but I remember fiercely trying to say, I'm old enough to go by myself with my friends, and
Yeah.
it's a time, back to my letting go recurring theme.
Yeah.
It's a time to say, okay, yeah, you are old enough. You can go around these 3 blocks and come back. And we also have phones, which makes it a little easier to
Mhm.
Totally
say-
changes the game.
call or text in a half hour. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, I didn't realize until we started talking how Halloween is a real marker of childhood phases, cultural phases,
Oh, yeah.
everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the first time they get to pick the costume, and then when they get to do it by themselves, and then when they maybe get to, it's not about trick or treating; it's about going to the party where people are going to maybe be bobbing for apples or playing,
Mhm.
other kind of kids exploring with sexuality games, whatever it is. It's a coming of age thing.
For sure.
And
Yep.
clearly, according to Pete, we have to get all those pictures sorted. And why aren't we
Sort
being
those
sponsored by
pictures,
by
no.
some photo sponsor?
I know.
Sorting.
Pete,
thing.
will you take my life over? Just, I mean,
just for a couple
we're
of weeks.
almost there. A couple of weeks?
Yeah.
No, I'm offering full-time job. We'll talk.
Okay.
We'll take this
All right.
offline, as they say.
I don't know if you can afford
Well-
me, but we'll try.
Let me shift to a lighter part of the topic to wrap it all up. First of all, am I correct that both of you have lived most of your lives in fairly temperate climates?
I've lived in Oklahoma. It's hot
Mhm.
there. I've lived in New Jersey. It's crazy there. And Korea and
Uh-huh.
France and Oregon.
Okay, so you might, but Mandy, you've been a California girl most of your life, right?
No, I
No.
grew up in Boston and went to
Okay,
school in Ithaca. Yeah.
Because to me, I always thought one of the great sort of Halloween debates is, and I apparently I was talking to like friends of mine in, from LA. They've just never faced this.
Do you
was
have to wear
the-
a sweater
Yeah,
over
you
your
have to put on-
costume?
what do you do when it's snowing on Halloween
Yeah.
and you have this like wonderful costume and then you got to put a coat over it?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yep. You put a coat over it. You got to put a coat over it because you generally put a lot of love and attention, and you think you put a coat over it because you don't want it to get. I mean, when you're really going to show it off, it's when you go inside. It's when you go inside for the party or for the candy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you ever have to face that with your kids?
Well,
No, not here.
Yeah, no, that's what I figured. Like,
Yeah.
no, every single year, single year of their youth, it's raining at some degree or
Mhm.
very windy. Yeah.
Well, and so here's my other question is, and again, I don't know if I'm a purist on it feels weird to be a purist on a holiday that I don't really celebrate, but in my neighborhood, and I've come to understand in many other neighborhoods, if October 31st is a Wednesday, then kids go trick-or-treating on November 2nd. Or whatever. They go trick-or-treating
Oh.
on the closest weekend day. Yeah, okay. You're upset about this too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you,
No, I don't care
you
for
go
that.
out on a Wednesday night if it's a Wednesday, right? That's,
you go
that's
out
just
on
the way it
Wednesday
is.
night. Yeah.
Oh, well, I've heard talk of moving it to the last Saturday of October, but until we do that, you go out when it is.
Okay. Okay.
You manage
Yeah.
yourself. You manage your kids. You're managed by your family. You deal with it. That's what you do.
Right.
You grow up. That's what you do. You grow up and you don't throw a fit.
I like it. I like it. All right. On that note, we're not sure about Harley Quinn costumes, but we are definitely sure that Halloween is on the 31st, no matter what day of the week it is. Friends, we'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories. Tell us what you think. What has been your experience, either as a kid and now an adult, or as a parent, parenting little ones on Halloween or big ones on Halloween? How have you dealt with these issues? What have you thought? What did we say that made you think? What did we say that made you throw something at the podcasting device you're listening to because we were so wrong or we were so right? Let us know. All information's in the show notes because as I record it, I haven't created it yet, but we're going to create it pretty darn soon, and we will let you all know soon. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you to Mandy and to Pete for being my co-hosts as usual. May the force be with you.
I can't believe you started with Friday the 13th and not Halloween.
Yeah, no, I was a Jason guy.
Michael Myers is the OG.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I did also. I
Wait,
didn't
did
get
we end the stream, guys?
No, we're still talking.
But we can end the stream and
We can end the
talk.
stream.
Oh, my friend Angus was in here. That's awesome.
Hi, Angus.
I was messaging with him.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, have fun. All right. I'm ending the stream. Or are you ending the stream? I'm pushing the button.
I'm pushing the
Well,
button.
that's
Cool, yeah,